Welcome to PK Woodworking, and I want to start off this particular one by saying thank you because there were so many positive messages and thoughts that came through on the last video, so I just wanted to say a heartfelt thanks to that. And then I wanted to kind of continue on what we were talking about, which is going to be some shop move stuff. So I wanted to tack back to something that I had said in the last video also that I got from PK Woodworks, which is about these Hubble connectors that he talked about, and that I finally came in from when I ordered them off of eBay, like he so well talked about. I had no idea about these other than seeing them probably every once in a while at the woodworking shows you go to and stuff. Like, this is what they usually use, I think, on convention floors to connect these kinds of machines together with. And I just had like no clue of what they are and the quality of them. But yeah, these things are like unbelievably made. And to his point on his video, you can get them at an astronomical discount on eBay, because when they take apart these factories, these are like indestructible, and so they just keep going on, but they sell them off again. This is what came, like, this was actually installed in this, I guess, but this came with some cut off 6-gauge cable, and that's copper. Like, that's a lot of copper, oh my Lord. And it fits inside the connector, and then you've got a female version right here. I think he probably alluded to on his video as well, but these connectors are sprung loaded, and they have a male and a female part, and they're waterproof. IP like 67. Don't know that I need that in my shop per se, but they do. And so when you grab two of them, and this one's got those pins installed in it, and what you may or may not be able to see when you take it apart and look at it is that the connector for ground inside of here actually makes the connection before any of the other connectors. So when you have the female one, like so, and you connect them, it's a bigger diameter, so the ground can only go one direction, and then it makes the actual connection first, and then you push it in, and now you screw down this little connector onto it, and now, like, this can't come apart. And so this hangs up in your cable tray or wherever you're gonna do. I'm really happy that he turned me on to this. This is, of course, incredible overkill to have this, I'm not gonna lie. But the other part that's great about it is that, like, it's kind of set it and forget it unless you have to move your machine, and that's the best part of it all. Crazy part is, and I can see because of the quality of how this is made, these things are expensive new. I think the cheapest I could find them out in the wild in a new fashion was in the $350-ish with shipping each. So that would be a combo purchase of around 700 bucks for one machine, which is insane. Like, unless you're required to do it by code, I guess. But on eBay, they're selling these things for the same price as some of these other connectors that I've got that I'm using currently right now. So you might be able to see behind me, I'm not sure or not, but the connector that I use for the wide belt sander that's in front of this, and for, well, I guess it is blocked, and for the joiner planer combo, because I needed to get up to that, 50 amp range or more, those connectors were 60 bucks a piece, give or take, plus tax and whatever. And these ones that are good for 60 amps, these ones, by the way, are good for 60 amps 3-phase. Those ones I got on eBay anywhere, because they're all different pricing, anywhere from $30 to $45 a piece, something like that. And they're indestructible, and I won't ever have to worry about this again. They have strain reliefs built into them that are pretty indestructible. The ones that are female have a different style that were on eBay. I wish they would have been this style, but the replacement part for this is $130. Yeah, no. You can get the Chinese finger style ones that go on this, strain reliefs, for, I don't know, 10 bucks or something like that. And I've got a few of them already, so I'll use those on the female parts that actually come up in the ceiling. So male ones go on the machine, female in the ceiling, so you don't have any random, pieces of this hanging down that are powered. That would be a bad thing. So that was just one great thing that he turned me on to that I'm excited about, that I got going. Then I have to decide, hey, how am I going to get these machines to my new place and when can I start? Well, we acquired a storage unit at a facility, 12 by 30, and it's got a door on both ends, so it'll make it really easy to get the machines in, boxes in, whatever we decide to take, and out. So what am I going to do though? What do I take up there? Well, there's a bunch of machines that I have currently right now in here that I won't use probably before I move, because I'm not going to build anything else except for some face frames. I need to build the face frame and finish it for my slop sink. I need to build the face frames for these two cabinets, because I'll take those with me and remount them where I'm at. And then I need to, do some other basic stuff. But I don't need my Hoffman right here, like dovetail machine. I don't need my Magi, like line boring machine. I don't need my Felder FT250 right now. I don't need my workbench that's over there. I can use this workbench right here instead. And there's a bunch of other things that probably could go now that I won't use. So now what I need to do is go around the shop, pick those things out, and then start to decide what will fit inside of a Penske truck or whatever I decide to rent. Another thing somebody turned me on to in the comments from last video, is that there's this thing called a studio truck that I'd never heard of before, for places like LA that have the film industry in, where these trucks you can rent, and they have really long hydraulic lifts on the back. Not the normal width, but longer width, that kind of fold up and go over the back door. So when they're getting things off the truck for like a movie shoot, that it's just easier for them to get it off and on, which would be great for me if I'm gonna put something on a pallet or something that has a wider footprint that I need to go on. So that would be like, hey, my Kundig sander over here, which is heavy, really heavy, and I'm gonna need to get it up into the truck and then move it with a pallet jack. So those kind of things are what I'm kind of mulling over right now. I'm gonna go through the shop today, and I'm gonna kind of decide what needs to go first and what I need to keep till later on. So let's go take a look at some of those things. Normally I would probably say that these stands that I would take them, but I'm probably gonna need those for a project that's coming right after it. However, this halfless, rack can definitely go. And like I said, the Felder and the Magi can definitely go. Now, the Northtech dovetail machine probably isn't gonna come with me. So I'm probably gonna set that up for sale in the next week or so. Now, the bandsaw probably could come with me, but I'm gonna use that again for something I'm gonna talk about in a second. I do think that the Kundig could probably come with me. I don't really think I'm planning on using anything with the Kundig. So over here, I think the drill press is definitely a candidate to go. Maybe one of these storage units could come, or maybe both of these could come. I don't know for sure. Maybe all three could go. And then this workbench definitely could come with me the first time. The workbench in the back, probably not. Technically, I could take the TV at this point, but I don't want to really blow the whole place up quite that big yet. And then some of the accessories could probably come, but I gotta figure out a way to pack those first, so maybe a little later. So what I was alluding to a second ago about something I need to probably do here, one other thing that you all kind of convinced me to do was to not pour concrete on top of the existing garage that's at the new home. So the idea of doing it with wood stringers that are like at different heights all the way across the floor to flatten the floor out, with an 1.125" flooring put on it, tongue and groove flooring put on top of it, would make a lot more sense. We've already kind of figured this out. If it's on 16-inch centers And my friend David Best gave me the idea to lay them flat, 2x4s flat, to give me some more place to actually screw in and some more stability. Then I'm really only about 12 inches in between any kind of stability where I'm pressing down into the floor. Should give me some really solid strengths. And then in the middle, where I'm going to put really heavy machines, I can put additional blocking underneath there. It also gives me the chance to use less of those cable trays we talked about last time, because I'd be able to take some of that cabling and go under the floor, even though maybe that's not the code exactly, but who's looking, who's counting? It's still going to be SOOW or SJOOW cable. And then if I lay them down like that, we figured it out that it's 1.2 degree like bevel that needs to be put on the piece of wood. So there's two ways to go. You can put a 2x4 that's pressure treated on the bottom, and then you can put an angled piece on top of it after that. But we've also kind of mulled this over a little bit. If we went instead kiln dried completely, but then just put a membrane between that bottom piece, because where I'm moving to is incredibly dry. There isn't going to be, the moisture level there is 10% at best. So there won't be a problem with a lot of moisture there, and we'll leave the floor kind of open on both sides to breathe too at the same way. We're thinking about like, hey, can I build it here when I have access to all these machines here? Can I have a load of 2x4s dropped off, kiln dried? I can surface them all to exactly the same dimension so that they're flat and straight, well, maybe not straight, but flat on both sides. And then I can cut that 1.2 degree angle on my planer by just putting a jig in there that gets me that 1.2 degree angle on it. And then I've got a perfect angle on every one of these pieces. And then after that, by kind of spreadsheeting this and looking at each individual one of those, which I think based on our discussions, there's going to be 30 of these pieces that are going to be going across side to side across the garage and RV garage. Those 30 would all be at different heights, but I could use my bandsaw to resaw those down to get whatever heights I need by stacking 2x4s. So you may be saying, hey, why don't you just make I-joists out of them? Well, that's probably a lot cheaper and probably the way that a lot of people would do it. But from what I was thinking about this and what David Best had kind of given me some insights, and I will link his YouTube channel on this as well, putting them at a flat, and on the flat will give me more space not only to anchor them on the top with the 4x8 sheets of plywood, but then also I won't have to worry about any twist or whatever on it and figuring out stability from the top to the bottom, because they will go straight to the floor, nailed into each other, and then glued to the floor as well. Then I just have to decide how many 2x4s I need and what spacers I need on each one of those 30 to make up a flat floor. That's kind of the plan. I'm gonna kind of show, probably in a future video, the floor format that I'm gonna use in the new shop so you can understand what I'm trying to do, because I still need to give myself a space to bring a car into the farthest part of the garage. And I'm gonna put up like a pony wall. Bro, that thing. I still need a place to park a car or my truck in that garage. So I'm actually gonna stop the leveling of the floor at a certain point, about 11 feet from the far end of the garage. You guys, I will show you guys a drawing in SketchUp at some point in time of what this all looks like. But I will put a wall that kind of separates those two areas for part of that space. Not the complete space, because there's still a garage door that has to come up and you can't, kind of manage that easily. So I will put a wall there to kind of separate the space and give me a little extra space to mount things on the wall or whatever if I need to. But I am going to reserve using that other space where my car will park when it needs to, or my truck will park when it needs to. I'll reserve that to use as kind of a finishing space when I need to. It's too hot to be able to do what I do here in Southern California, probably for 4 months of the year where I'm going, to be able to decide to just go outside and shoot a finish. It just won't work. Not enough space where I'm at either to do it like I do here. I have a whole backyard. I could do it in here. So there, I'm gonna have to use that, 10 by or 11 by 20 space to do finishing, and I'll put up some kind of a fabric system in there to block all the things that are in there so that they don't get overspray immediately. But I've got HVLP and it should, work pretty well in there. And then I can just vent it out the garage door at the bottom. It's all water-based that I use, so not really a big thing. For most of the machines I just talked about and the things that I want to take on the first trip out there to the storage unit, I'm not really going to need to put on a pallet or anything like that. Those machines, I'm just going to be able to pallet jack onto that truck, get it off pretty simply because they're not crazy heavy. When I get to the bigger machines, like the sander here, like the joiner planer combo, like the sliding table, like the shaper probably, those machines are probably going to need to go on a pallet. The shaper, maybe not, but the other three for sure I think need to go on a pallet just to be safe. And they give me like the space on this one. I don't really want to disassemble anything on the sander. I probably am going to need to do a little disassembly on the saw, but let's talk about that. Oh, the saw, the lovely beast, my Lawn Invincible. So the outrigger is pretty easy. That comes off of the slider, so that's not a big deal. I'm planning on taking that off and strapping it to one of my adjustable benches that rolls around. That's how we actually installed it. So that's how I'm going to take it off and move it with. I'll just strap it to it so it won't be able to move anywhere. And then I'll take the crosscut fence, will just come off, and I'll store that separately. The question comes down to is, am I going to be able to get some support, or is it going to make sense to get support from somebody else like SCM to do this or not? They've said yes, but the question comes down to, do I want to have someone else ship this, or do I want to just make myself a really large pallet to put this on like it came on, take off the back table, put this arm back the way that it was when it came originally to me, and then ship it myself? And I don't know the answer to that yet, so I'm kind of mulling that, but I got a lot of time for this one. This one is definitely going to be the one that I'm most worried about. I think that my joiner planer combo is the least worried. Maybe the sander also, both of those are just bulky. They don't worry me per se, but the table saw does worry me. So we'll see how that works out. So thanks for watching on this one. And I want to again say thanks again for the kind words last time. 100% likes, which is, I get videos like that, but that was really kind. Lots of great comments in there. And keep them coming, because I think I changed my mind on a few different things that we decided to do for the move because of what I got from you guys. So I appreciate that. And keep watching, and hope you have a great one, and we'll see you on the next one.